use the same scales to construct modified box plots for the pulse rates of males and females from the accompanying data sets, identify any outliers, and use the box plots to compare the two data sets. So we're going to open up our data in StatCrunch. So we have men's pulse rates and then women's pulse rates. So let's go ahead and open that up. Okay, so what we're going to do is the first question is determine the box plot for men's pulse rate data and then choose the correct graph below. So let's go ahead and then go to graph, scroll down to box plot. We're going to select men's pulse rates, and then we're going to use fences to identify outliers, and then we're going to draw boxes horizontally, and then let's go ahead and select compute. Okay, so let's go ahead and change our increments from 440 to 110 so we can identify that. So we're going to go to x-axis, we're going to go to the minimum of 40, a maximum of 110, and then select OK. So now we have our box plot. Well, first and foremost, this x to the left is an outlier, and this dot to the right is an outlier. Okay, and that outlier represents the value of 103. So therefore, we're going to eliminate A already. Okay, we can eliminate B because there's no outliers to the left. Okay, and if we take a look at D, they don't have any outliers located there. And if we take a look at C, let's just make sure it matches. We have our minimum value at about 48, which is about correct. We have our quartile 1, which is 61, right above 60. The median is 66.5, so it's in between 60 and 70. We can see that quartile 3 is 74.5. We can see that the upper limit is 86. And then the outlier over here is 103. So therefore, we're going to select C. Okay, now it says, what points are the outliers? Well, we only have one of them, which was 103. So we're going to select B. Okay, now we want to be able to determine the box plot for the women's box plot data. So now let's go ahead and then edit. And then now we're going to choose women's pulse rates. And then we already have it selected to use the fences to identify outliers. And then we're drawing boxes horizontally. And let's compute. So again, let's just make sure our x-axis goes from 40 to 110. So choose the x-axis. The minimum is 40. And the maximum is 110, and then select OK. Now if you notice here, we have an outlier over here, and when you highlight that number, you can see that it says 105. So for A, you can see that the outliers are to the left, and it's not that one. We have two outliers over here, and we don't have an outlier on the left side, so we know that we can eliminate A and C. If we take a look at B, there's an outlier to the left, and that's not the case. Over here we have one to the right, and that looks like, again, it's at 105. That's at 105. So let's take a look at the maximum, which is 101. There's 101. It's right about 101. We can see that quartile 3 is at 83, so that's about right there. There's 83. We can see that the median is at 77, and there it is at 77. Quartile 1 is at 70. There's 70, and then the minimum value or the lower limit is 55, which is over here, and there it is. So we're going to say that the answer is D. Okay, now we need to identify that outlier, and we saw that the outlier was 105, so we're going to select D to be 105. Okay, now it says compare the two box plots and then choose the correct answer below. So now let's go back. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select options. We're going to select edit. Okay, and then what we can do is we can choose women's pulse rates or go and then men's pulse rates. So it doesn't matter which one you choose first, just make sure that when you read it. So when you click on that, you can see that the men's pulse rates are at the top, women's pulse rates are at the bottom. So we can see that there's a minimum over here. We can see that the between quartile 1 and quartile 3, it's between 70 and 83. These values are between 61 and 74.5. And then we can see that this outlier is 103 and this outlier is 105. So let's answer our question. It says, in general, it appears that males have lower pulse rates than females, and the variation among the male pulse rates is much greater than the variation among the female pulse rates. Okay, well, we can see here that these are kind of closer together. The pulse rates are lower in the men's than it is in the women's, because you can see that this box is lower than this box. But the variation, I'm not so sure if it's smaller than that one. Let's take a look at B. It says, it appears that the males have higher pulse rates than females. Well, that's not true, because it's not higher, it's lower. Okay, and then in general it says it appears that males have lower pulse rates than females, which is true, and the variation among the pulse rates is similar to the variation among the female pulse rates. Well, if we look at the box plot, you can see here that when you look at the box plots, the data is not as spread out. So you can see here that the box plot goes from here to here, and the same thing with the women's. It's not spread out as much. Okay, so it's quite similar in how the data is spread. Now for part D, it says, it appears that males have higher pulse rates. Well, that's not true, because they have smaller pulse rates, so it's going to be either between the answer A or C. And C means that their variations are similar, so we're going to select C and check our answer. And there is our result.